Welcome to Life List, a birding podcast.
Hello and welcome, everybody. Back again for a new episode of Life List. This is George Armistead. I am here with my co-host Alvaro Jaramillo. How you doing today, Alvaro?
Looking good here in the West.
Nice. That's what we like to hear. A little nippy here. We got this humid cold here where it's like, I saw it was like going to be 50 degrees the other day and rainy, and I was like, oh yeah, it won't be too bad. And I go out and I'm just like, I'm shivering before I know it, because it's not even that cold, but it's just this penetrating humid cold. And suffice it to say, I could have prepared a little better.
That's kind of like what we have all the time here. Humid, cold, even summer. It's never really is truly dry out here and on the coast, Central Coast.
Yeah, man. Well, what have you been up to? You've been getting out, getting after it. Did you do either of those CBCs you had planned?
I did a sea watching CBC. So 3 hours standing there looking out over the ocean. And it was interesting because the winds were offshore, which was that's not the norm here, and it brought out like smog over the water, like from the city. Not ideal. And a little heat shimmer, which you actually never see, that heat haze over the water. It was a little weird. You started getting pelicans going up in thermals.
Oh, wow.
So it really was one of those days where everything was so odd that you felt like an earthquake was going to happen. Earthquake weather is what we call it here. It's kind of something weird about the weather.
Mm-hmm.
But the coolest thing was that just masses of white-throated swifts started flying right over my head.
Yeah.
So I was photographing them and watching them and looking through them all and enjoying the whole thing. And that was pretty wild. I mean, they're kind of a mystery to me in winter, because they up north, they get up to southern British Columbia, the Okanagan Valley, and those are theoretically all migrants. Yet we tend to think of them as being resident in much of the southern, sort of southwestern part of the U.S. Yet in a place like here, I might see swifts a few times a year on the coast. That's it. And they sort of seem to come in from I don't know where, and where they go or how far they're moving to, I have no idea. But these birds were definitely kind of on the move and going through. And then when it's crummy weather, right? Like you can't find them anywhere. If it's raining or what have you, they're completely gone. And they even places that they're more regular sort of inland, they just disappear. And I wonder if they actually go into torpor. They just go into their spots.
Go into like a crevice of a cave someplace and just like...
Yeah, or a bridge or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then they go into torpor waiting for the good weather again. Then they all kind of emerge. I mean, there's such weird animals. And, there's the other swifts that stay up in the air the whole time. So who knows?
That's what I was going to ask you. Do you think that it's possible these things just move around the edge of fronts and are actually just never stop going, or not so much?
I don't think so, actually, because you will see them here, even in the non-breeding situations around bridges and stuff, where you're okay, they're sleeping there or they're doing something there. But just such a mystery. And so it's always kind of like a surprise, like, oh, look, swifts are all out, especially on the coast here, where we don't have swift weather all the time. And I got to use the word Swifty for anybody who's a fan of swifts. And some people get that, some people won't.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Not sure I get it myself. But
if you're a Taylor Swift fan, you're a Swifty.
Be. Yeah, I see.
There you go.
And what state is she from, Alvaro?
Well, the way that I'm seeing your bait do kind of this funny George face, I would say it's Probably Pennsylvania.
The great state, the keystone state of Pennsylvania. That is accurate. Correct. Mm-hmm.
Boy,
perhaps a leading question, but
you
answered it appropriately.
You have Pink and Taylor Swift?
Yeah, Pink's from like right around here, though. I mean, Taylor Swift, I think, is from Reading, just outside of Philly, a little ways. So, yeah.
Ooh.
You know, not just West Philadelphia with Will Smith and the Roots and everybody. We've got a nice little collection of talent here.
I just did an ooh because this juvenile sharp-chin hawk just dove through the feeders, scaring everything up.
Oh boy!
And then went to hide in one of the shrubs.
One of those accipiter explosion of birds. Like sometimes you don't even see the accipiter; you just know that one has arrived because everyone's like.
Yeah, it was an explosion. Didn't get anything, but he's sitting in the tree, all hidden, waiting. I've seen him do this before. He just sits there for like half an hour, and then all the birds come back to the feeder, and then he goes for it again.
Nice.
God.
Yesterday we had and Tom Johnson, Jason Weckstein, Liam Hart. We were all doing CBC, and we see this. Jason spots this falcon. He's like, "Falcon going over," And we just watch it. And it did one of these. It was moving so quick and looked so small and dark. We all thought it was a merlin at first. It ended up being a peregrine. And I've seen him do this before. They're such amazing hunters that it almost looked like it caught a starling, but what it really looked like the starling like just flew into its hands, like into its grasp. It looked like like the peregrine just kind of like rose up, and it looked like it was so effortless that it looked like the starling just like floated into its grasp, and he was just like, "Whoop, thank you, take that, nice little snack." I've seen him do that before. I remember one time with like it was a long-billed dowitcher thing flew off calling. I was like, man, something's after that bird, and it was the same thing. It just kind of like floated into the grips of the peregrine. I was like, wow, that thing really is masterful hunter. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, I wonder if like if we had like peregrine bloopers, we'd notice that they're ridiculously bad at certain moves, like they just can't do it.
They like crash land every now and then. Yeah. You do see bird bloopers every now and then. They can, like, I'll never forget Jesse Fagan and I doing Sea Watch at the Storm once, and there's like, I don't know, 15 people, onshore winds, strong onshore winds. Everyone's like waiting for Jaegers, maybe a rare seabird to show up down Cape May. And Jesse and I must have got on, even though we were spaced apart a ways, we must have got on the same double-crested cormorant. And all of a sudden, like, everyone's being quiet, because everyone's like intensely looking for birds, just like hope everyone wants to be the person that, spots the great skua or whatever. And Jesse and I are all of a sudden just burst into laughter at the same time. And like everyone else is quiet and like starts looking around like, what are you guys about? And we had both seen this double-crested cormorant like try to kind of like, it's real wavy. There's like high waves and stuff, big chop. And this cormorant was kind of gliding along low, and its left wing like caught one of the waves, and the thing just like cartwheeled like several times and then splashed into the water. And it was like, you don't see birds really kind of mess up that bad, that we just like, we were dying. And we couldn't even explain to people what we'd seen for a while because we were laughing so hard.
So I once, like when I was a kid, I was swimming in Lake Huron, Wasaga Beach, and it's this flat, like really shallow beach, and it's a lake. It's not that wavy, but sometimes, and you start fiddling around, like jumping up through the waves and stuff, the little small waves. And I remember like kind of getting down under the water and just like jumping up like as high as I could. And as I do this, like I feel this like whack, like hit me in the head. And I'm like, oh, and I look down, it's a herring gull actually hit me on the head as it was flying through, because I came up like from out of the water. And the poor gull's like, sitting there like on its back going like, oh man, like what happened?
Where the hell did you come from?
I know. And I'm like, got a little dent there, on my head there, a little tiny bit of a little cut. So I take the gull over to the beach, and kind of, make sure he's kind of has a place to
Oh
hang out
wow!
and
So
resuscitate.
he didn't like get up and fly off right away. He
Nope.
actually, you guys, he must have hit you pretty hard.
He hit me really hard,
Wow.
but there was the bright side to this whole story was most of the birds that were flying through were Caspian terns. And if it had been a Caspian tern, I don't
Oof.
think I'd be here to
Yeah,
talk to you about.
that'd
It
be
would have gone right
smarting.
through my head.
Yeah, exactly. Pterodactyl. Yeah.
Talk about screwing up, though. Herring gull.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a big bird. Hurts.
that is a big bird. And yeah, well, speaking of herring gulls, Al,
Whoa.
saw quite a few this weekend. Quite a few herring gulls.
It's like 40,000?
About that. I think our estimate was close to that for the landfill. We did the landfill like I talked about last time, and some good times up there. There was definitely, there was more gulls than there had been the last couple of years. Usually, I think we were kind of in like the 25 to 30,000. It definitely felt like more. When we arrived, it actually didn't seem like there were as many, and you could see them in the distance, just kind of coming in, and like it was like squadrons of them, like coming in from the river further south, maybe the lakes. And I was like, man, they just started packing in all around us. I got a picture of my car, and it's like we walked well away from the car, and it's just surrounded by herring gulls. But yeah, we ended up with about 40,000 or so. And the other guys that they go to the lake there at dusk and watch them come in. I don't know if they did that this year, but if they do, often they get close to 100,000. But yeah, it was a fun day, man. We got to see a lot of gulls and a good array of Iceland gulls and a couple Thayer's types, and one real funky one I'd actually like for you to get a look at. It looked like a Thayer's gull in every respect, but totally pale eye and a little bit of a heavy build to it. I suspect if it was out your way on the West Coast, you wouldn't have worried about it too much, but in the East, people look askance at Thayer's gulls with that kind of build around here. And then the real highlight was this California gull. We had a beautiful adult California gull bird from your side of the pond. Whoa. Over here. Yeah. And it's been about 20 years since I've seen one in the East. So I was pretty jazzed to see that thing sitting out there. It's pretty cool.
I mean, not to take away on the absolute level of focus that one needs to like find something like that out east, but my guess is if there were 10 times more bird people interested in gulls, it'd probably be, kind of an annual thing out that way. But, because it does take a lot of
you got
know-how.
Yeah.
And patience.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's tough to find too many places where gulls really congregate in big, big numbers. And if it was easy to do that, I think we would get pretty good coverage in those places because there are enough people dedicated to it. But yeah, it is. There's definitely more of these things floating around than we realize. Our white whale there is the slaty-backed, which I know you seem to run in just about every time you walk your dog now out there. But
I saw one the other day.
Yeah, I know. You were like jogging, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's ridiculous, man.
I felt actually quite proud of this one because, I kind of eyeballed it, was able to go back because I don't jog with binoculars. So I was able to tell some friends and went back and we found it and it was one. So, well, at least we think it is one.
That's absurd.
So, one of the 1-year-olds. So the tough.
Oh, wow. It's the first cycle.
Yeah.
Oof.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So it's kind of like, I was thinking like, gosh, if we never find it, never get a photograph of it, I'll just have this image in my head of what I was seeing and it'll just die. But instead we found it, got photographs, and then it was like, yes,
wow,
really felt like an accomplishment.
Jeez.
I gather your California gull was a little bit of an accomplishment there too. That's what I hear.
I have to say I was pretty pleased about it because it was not real close when I first saw it, and it's like I could only see its head. Like it was one of these things where you're like scanning through, thousands of these gulls, and it was on the back side of the flock, and I just saw its head like poking up, and then the head went down, and I was like, ooh, that looked good. It looked like a dark eye, sort of smaller bill, and then it put its head up again. I was like, ooh, that does look good. And then I, kind of got the guys on it. Tom Johnson, he's like a foot taller than me. Like I'm not a short fella, but Tom.
So you're seeing the head and he's seeing all the way to the legs.
Exactly.
Right?
I was like, you got to get on this, dude, because your angle, you can actually like see a good chunk of the bird. And he gets on it and he's like, oh, wow. Yeah. Like that. He was like, that thing's going to have green legs, And so we like positioned ourselves and got better views of it. And then we really were able to see it well and get good photos and stuff. But yeah, it was nice to have it just, you just sort of like see a hint of something and you're like, it triggers your spidey senses, like you're like,
yeah,
man, that looks like something. I'm pretty sure I know what that is. I want to see that better. And then when it is that thing, it's pretty satisfying because so often it's not, right? You're kind of looking for stuff and you're like, no, it's, I wanted it to be something, but it ain't. So this was, it was a nice one.
I think if anybody's listening who's sort of more new at this whole game of birding and stuff, and then you wonder like, how does this magic happen of like knowing, finding these things, and it all ends up being experience and also kind of this repetition of even images, like looking at the book over time and just going, oh, that's what that thing looks like. I wish I could see it one day. And you remember what something should look like. And then in real life, when you see the real thing, you don't see the field marks. You just like, it's like an automatic, like, there it is, or boom, that's one I want to see better. And it's all kind of repetition. It's very, like, in a sense, it sounds easy, but it's time. It's time.
When it happens, it actually is easy because at that point you've looked at enough stuff that it's, as we've talked about before, it's recognition. It's not really identification. It's just recognition. It's like, spotting a good friend in a crowded room or what have you. There's a famous example kind of the thing you're talking about. I some of my friends get furious at me for reading Malcolm Gladwell's books, but I actually really like them. I understand some of the limitations, but so I'll couch this story with that.
I love those books.
Yeah, me too. I think they're great. But I think it was in Blink. He actually
who'd be furious. Who are these friends of yours?
Anyway. Well, I won't name any names. I got one good buddy who's like he just really finds Gladwell irritating. But there's, I think it was
he's Canadian,
Blink. Is he? I did not know that.
That's right.
Nice. Well, he's got a famous example where he talks about David Sibley and how I believe it was on Ocean Drive, which is where I was yesterday for the Cape May Christmas bird count. I think Sibley, was a younger birder then. So we're going back some years, and he just saw this shorebird, kind of medium-sized shorebirds, pick up out of the marsh, fly a little bit, and settle back down. And, saw this nice sort of U-shaped white rump patch and was like, that's a ruff. And he'd never seen a ruff before, but he knew it instantly. Mm-hmm. And it's the same kind of thing, I think, where you kind of fantasize about the bird you want to see and you study it enough that when it appears, you're like, oh, wow, there it is.
Mm-hmm. There it is. Yeah, no, it is magical. And, in a way you can't force it to, you just have to like spend time watching birds, thinking about them, looking at images. eBird images could be like, if you drinking your morning cup of coffee and instead of like reading depressing news in the New York Times, you could just go to eBird, and say, oh, today I'm going to look at rough, and then just like go through a whole bunch of rough pictures and while you do your coffee. And believe it or not, that actually is teaching you
you're
what
reinforcing
they look like.
The imagery in your brain.
Yeah. I
love looking through the top imagery, like, top media for certain birds in eBird. I mean, there's so much amazing imagery, but it's even fun to look at some of the lesser quality stuff that can teach you a lot. It's good stuff.
Yeah. No, we should, that's a topic for the future. We should pick our top 10 best photos that we can find on eBird, after like just sort of rummaging around for a little bit, like just cool stuff for different reasons, and we can talk about them.
Yeah,
that'd be a good good topic. I like that.
Yeah. And if folks have cool images that they want us to talk about, then certainly send those in. That could be good fun. I think there's the amount of imagery there is pretty impressive. It's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to talk about, Al, is yesterday I had the privilege and pleasure of hosting of being one of the hosts of the Bird of the Year, American Birding Association Bird of the Year reveal for 2022. It was here in Philly at Triple Bottom Brewery, which is an awesome place, by the way. B Corporation. They do all sorts of good stuff in addition to brewing some mighty tasty brews. And Al, last time we talked, you had a guess as to what the Bird of the Year would be. And while you were not correct, you were not that far off either. You guessed the great horned owl, and you got the family right, but different species of owl, more diurnal one. It ended up being the burrowing owl, that's the 2022 Bird of the Year. Pretty cool.
Yeah. No. This reminds me of the story too. The other day, I was birding in a place, out towards the Central Valley, and some of the birders told me that they'd been stopped by a police officer, right? Like, what are you doing, kind of thing. I was like, oh, they're looking for birds. Oh, right. And the cop says, hey, you guys know the ground owl? And they're like, ground owl? And they knew exactly what he meant. Oh yeah, we see these ground owls around here. They're owls, but they're in the ground. Ground owls. And I thought that was an amazingly adept, like a guy who didn't know about birds. Yeah. He's just going around there with his coffee, looking for crimes, and meantime he's looking at the birds and the cows and things, and he's like, oh, look at them ground owls, probably talks to his partner, hey, Joe, you ever notice ground owls? Oh yeah, look at them, ground owls. They just created this name, and to him it was the ground owl. And anyway, we thought it was a good name, and that we were also happy that the police are out there looking at the birds, and paying attention.
That's cool. Yeah. Kind of reminds me of that Amazon kingfisher that showed up down there in Texas. And I remember the police were like so cooperative about like they like closed off like a lane of highway so that on the birders could all like go and check out the Amazon kingfisher. And I remember like before I kind of understood what was going on, I pulled over there and I was getting ready to, I was like, I kind of want to look at see the Amazon kingfisher. It's like only the second one for North America. And this cop comes up, and I thought he's going to be like, yeah, you better run along, better move along. And he's like, have you seen the Amazon kingfisher? It's right over here. I was like, wow. Yeah. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's, well, we should say North America, north of the Mexican border, right?
Yes. Exactly. ABA area, if you
right, before, Michael Redder's going to write in. And he's
That's true, yes. He gets rather particular about these definitions. Yeah, true indeed.
No, it's good. I mean, that's why we have these definitions, but we do sometimes go astray.
This is true.
Speaking of which, like as far as like kind of a pet peeve, one of my pet peeves is that nobody can spell Steller's J correctly, right? They put an A on it.
Right.
And now today, big news, right? There's a Steller seagull, which had been in Canada. It's like now in Massachusetts, and everybody's going nuts, right? I think it's Massachusetts. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And I was like amazed because all of the early reports, like yesterday and this morning, were spelled correctly, like Steller with an E. And I'm thinking like, wow, why is it that this Steller gets spelled correctly and the J does not? But then later on, it started being misspelled. Like, I mean, it was like several hours of good spelling, and then the spelling started going. Right, yeah, the A came in, and I was like, "Damn you, Steller!"
It was a short-lived run of good spelling.
Yeah. There's probably an analysis that could be made. Like all the early people talking about it were probably like long-time experienced birders who have been told how to spell it, and then later on it was like, newer birders and spell check was coming in and messing it up. But in any case, I have very few pet peeves, but that's one of them.
Yeah.
Steller.
I love that like everybody's like thrilled and posting social media posts about the Steller seagull and how awesome it is that this bird's here. And I can just picture you being like, the bird is awesome, but what's even more amazing is everyone spelling it correctly.
Yeah, I know. But, I think obviously, I wouldn't necessarily like get on a plane to see that bird because as you have been in Japan, where in the winter, where you can see a whole load of them, and it's amazing to see them where they're common. Well, I mean, they actually are common for a few weeks of the year in certain parts of Hokkaido. And I guess you had a nice little situation up there.
I was going to say my experience on that bird was pretty tainted. Like I saw quite a few flying over pretty well, but I didn't get to have the like, walk up to the edge of the hole in the ice, and see these ginormous, like, it's one of the biggest eagles in the world, right? I mean, it's one of I think it's top 3 and in maybe aspect ratio. It might even be the biggest. I don't know. In terms head to tail, wingtip to wingtip, it's a really big bird. And of course the bill is massive, right? You look at the bill and it's just this incredibly thick yellow orange sort of school bus yellow kind of bill with a big hook on it, and they got the big wedge shaped tail, and it's as dramatic as raptors get. And of course, we were on a tour group there, and this is one of my very first tours I ever led, and I was just super happy to be going to this area. And I was like, man, this is going to be awesome. We're going to get out there, be white-tailed eagles sitting around Steller seagulls. It's frigid cold, coldest place I've just about ever been. The Siberian current, whisking through all sorts of just, I feel like it was like, I don't know, 10, 15 below, and it was windy. So it was just like, it was cold. And I remember, they're like, all right, George, well, I was with Phil Gregory. He's like, George, you lead the group out there. Well, I'll bring up the rear. And I take like 4 steps onto the ice, and I go right up to my waist, just fall right through the ice, right up to the waist. I'm in water. And of course, it actually was just thin, and like at the edges there, once you got on the ice, it was much, much thicker. But I had picked just a bad spot, and I was soaked, and it was freezing. And everybody's like looking around like, oh my God, like, we're really supposed to go out there? And the guide just fell through the ice. And Phil's like, don't worry about it. It's kind of a little bad right there. Just keep going. It'll be fine. And of course he was right. And everyone goes out there, but I had to go back to the bus because I was like cold, it's like really, really cold, dangerously cold. So I go back to the bus to like, I had all my gear there and I had, I could change, but the bus was gone. So I had to I started like running in circles, like, running, doing like little laps, just to try to stay warm. And the bus was gone for a good 20 minutes. And, but the new bus showed up and I got changed and everything. I walked back out there. Everybody's coming back off the ice. I'm like, that was amazing. Those Steller seagulls were right at our feet. And it was like time to go. And I was like, oh, gut punch, I'd had like a few flying around, but, didn't really get to sink my teeth into them the way a lot of folks did. So I need to get back there.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I don't think now anywhere do you walk on the ice to see them. Like the sort of current ways that people see them is that these guys come around with all these fish guts, and they kind of lay them out on the ice, and all the photographers line up, sort of a decent distance away, and it's kind of like a bird feeder for eagles, which is crazy. Awesome. Yeah, and I mean hundreds come in. So it's kind of you were one of the early adopters. So.
Yeah, you're really whetting the appetite there. Jeez.
Now it's you just so, and they are. I mean, I was impressed. Like you said, huge bill and the wedge shaped tail, like just incredible, like white diamond.
Yeah,
but the young birds are really cool too because they're like patchy brown things with the big beaks and the tail coming in and white splotches, kind of just like almost there's more to focus and concentrate on, like where the white is. And it's like each one is different, kind of like a fingerprint, Once they become adults, they sort of all kind of look like more this similar. Regal, similar thing. Yeah. I mean, I guess what I'm getting at is that there's just so much to look at in those situations at this amazing bird that you're like, whoa, it's totally the opposite of like the harpy eagle experience where like there's one, or a pair or a chick in a nest. This is like a whole bunch of them, like a whole group of them. And that alone is pretty amazing. So yeah, got to go back.
Yeah, really do. I mean, for the Larophile, the gull freaks like us, it's got a lot to offer. And not only has it got the big eagles and the cranes are pretty. Seeing those Japanese red-crowned cranes at dawn there with all the mist around them is definitely one of the more magical natural spectacles you can ever see. And then, not to mention the biggest owl in the world,
right?
Blakiston's fish owl. That's another amazing thing to see there. And I think we've both
the Alcids.
Yeah, that's right. The Alcids too. Spectacled guillemot. And,
all this. It's a good country for winter birding. That's for sure.
Yeah.
It's well, can't wait to get back there. I mean, right now we can't, but
right.
But
near
we
future,
will.
hopefully.
The future.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that is one heck of an owl that is over there. And just circling back to the burrowing owl, which I think is a fantastic choice for the bird of the year by the folks at ABA. I always say that like anybody that turns up their nose at a whale or an owl is just simply a bad human being. And I mean, it's true. Like those are some of the most charismatic animals in the world. If you can't get excited about seeing those, then there's character flaw there. There's just if not multiple character flaws. So
although looking for owls when you're a tour guide is not the most fun thing in the world because failure rates are high.
That is true. That is true. Especially some of the smaller nocturnal ones can be particularly difficult. But if you get them on the day roost, that is pretty nice. And diurnal owls, like the burrowing owl, are pretty darn cooperative. You gotta like those. They do some cool stuff.
The ground owl.
Yeah, one of the things that Holly Merker was telling me, she was there with a whole bunch of other folks. Great cast of characters showed up for this Bird of the Year reveal party, and she was like, "Yeah, the burrowing owls, where they excavate these cavities where they nest, there's sort of like an area where the dirt kind of piles up, and I think they call it the skirt. Is kind of what they call that area, if I remember correctly." And almost like a lyrebird does, or a bowerbird rather, they will the owls will pick different things and they'll decorate the skirt with little tidbits. And she was telling me how at some spots, one spot that she knows, there was an owl that was famous for picking up cigarette butts and just kind of placing them around the skirt. And then there was another that would pick up dog droppings, dog poop. And it would just kind of decorate its area with dog poop.
It sounds just like bowerbirds.
Yeah, exactly.
Except crappy.
But then there was one that really went the extra mile. And I don't know where it was getting this material, but it was using ladies' undergarments to decorate its area around the nest. And it was like, people were like, "What? Wow,
that's like a creepy owl."
Yeah, I don't know. I was picturing sort of like a neon colored thongs or something. Like it'd probably be pretty cool looking. I don't know, but imagination is half of it, I suppose.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe it was actually little plastic doll underwear. The colored. Because I can't imagine an owl flying with proper human-sized underwear, but I guess.
Yeah, I don't know how that works, but they must have been close to like someplace people were hanging laundry, or maybe there was a bunch of clothes getting dropped off someplace. I don't know.
Did you check on this, or get some some photographic evidence? Because maybe she was just making it up, and now you're going live.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I heard this yesterday.
Why you, Holly Merker, you and your jokes?
She can be quite the prankster. I wouldn't put it past her. Maybe she was like, I'm going to feed him this little tidbit, and he's going to go blabbing it around, and everybody's going to say what an idiot he is. But no, I mean, I don't know.
That's pretty wild, though. The
yeah,
skirt.
it is. Yeah, it's a good story, even if it's not true. So
I know. I mean, it's worth telling, even if it is true. In fact, in today's world, who cares if it's true or not? We just talk.
Yeah, perhaps deserves a little more research, but I thought it was pretty cool.
No, that's not the kind of show we do.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of research, though, you've done a little bit on Burrowing Owls.
I've done a little bit of research. Yeah. The funny thing is that it's one of those things in birding that happened to me where I was like, hold on a second, where I was birding down in Southern California and I heard this burrowing owl calling. And I thought, that's kind of weird. I mean, it's not how I think of burrowing owls calling. And then I realized that most of the time I hear them calling, I'm in South America. And then I thought, hold on a second. How about if they don't call alike here versus South America? So I started putting together recordings. And sure enough, there's this division between northern and southern birds. It's a little bit more complicated than that, but completely, what's the word? I mean, there's variation, but you fall into one or the other camp in terms of your vocalizations. And it looks like, owls don't learn their songs or that we have two species of burrowing owls, based on this voice stuff. And I've analyzed about 3/4 of it now, and it looks clear. But then the question is, burrowing owl, we have a name that is so awesome. If we had two species, what would we call the other one? Or, that you get into the whole issue of, do you mess it up by calling it northern burrowing owl, which I hate those things.
So boring.
So boring. Or do we leave it as burrowing owl and assume people won't make the mistake?
How about burrowing owl and ground owl?
All right, ground owl. And we have to track down this cop, out there and sort of say, can we use this name, officially? He'd be like, sure, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Ground owl. Yeah.
Athena terrestris. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's amazing, that those birds are doing their thing out there in the day. And, have you ever seen little owl? I assume you have.
Yeah.
It's amazingly similar to a burrowing owl. And you don't think of little owls in sort of Asia, Europe, as being just a quasi burrowing owl. But, oh my gosh, they're nearly the same thing. It's pretty cool.
Super, super similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I always think burrowing owls look leggier.
Yeah.
But they are.
Well, to carry the underwear, you need a bigger leg. It's the evolution of leg size,
Exactly. Yeah. It's true. You got to have some muscles down there, Yeah. No, cool birds, and that is fascinating. I think there's like 17 different subspecies, so it'll be interesting to see where's the break, or can you talk about that at all, or is that something you're still kind of working on?
It's actually northern South American birds sound like North American birds,
it's like Darien Gap kind of situation.
No. Colombia is northern, so Venezuela and northern Brazil are actually northern, and then once you get to about Ecuador south, it's the other one. Yeah,
interesting.
It's weird. It's not what you'd expect.
Yeah, I wonder why the break is there. It's curious.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how it works. I just put together the numbers.
Nice.
And, I have no idea. Visually, you would be able to tell them apart because, like you said, there's 17 described subspecies based on how dark or pale they are. I would imagine there's probably enough variation within each one of these two species that you wouldn't be able to know specifically one or the other without sound or location. But maybe there's something. I haven't, haven't thought about it that clearly. It's kind of almost too complicated.
Yeah.
Visually,
Yeah. It's Well, it's got a massive range, those things, so there's going to be a lot of variation. It's when you see a range that spans from Canada all the way down almost to Tierra del Fuego, you start to think there's probably more than one species involved there. But it'll be interesting to see how it all breaks out.
Yeah, it's a good choice, though. I mean, I'm not sure what the criteria always is for the ABA bird. Does it have to be Eastern and Western? But
they kind of they try to choose stuff that like could be spark birds or like touchstones for people that they can see the bird over and over again and still enjoy it, and charismatic species that maybe there's a conservation focus as well. Maybe not. I know that at least I think in Alberta and parts of Canada, I think burrowing owls have really just about vanished. So I know there's a conservation concern there. I don't know.
And in Florida. Yeah, the
Florida ones have a really, pretty tight population there. They don't move around either. And so that's, I think, was part of the thinking for this one.
Interestingly, I guess kind of topical of this week, one of the issues on the Farallon Islands with introduced mice was that burrowing owls actually move in during the winter. Migrant burrowing owls move in, and they eat the mice in the late fall and whatever, and the mice have this population crash about midwinter. Then the burrowing owls switch to eating ashy storm petrels on the Farallons.
Wow.
And there were no burrowing owls there probably naturally coming in there. They just come in because there's this introduced mouse population. And that is one of the elements why the biologists have wanted to remove the mice from the islands. And this week, that was given the okay by the California Coastal Commission. So it was a big kind of political thing here locally.
Yeah.
And it actually went through. So that'll be really good for nesting seabirds, as well as the other biota that's on the islands, off of San Francisco, little crickets and salamanders, as well as native vegetation and all sorts of other alcids that breed there that are probably going to benefit from removal of mice. But burrowing owl was key in that kind of storm petrel thing. And to think burrowing owls eating storm petrels, it first doesn't make sense, but then you're like, oh, actually kind of does make sense. They probably go right in there with the burrows with them and grab them.
The short-eared owls and with the wedge-rump storm petrels in the Galapagos.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's a whole other cool owl out there.
Yeah, that's cool. I think one of the great conservation success stories in the last decade or so are these rat and pest eradication programs from these remote island groups. And we've seen it now in South Georgia, where the South Georgia pipit has just recovered incredibly. We've seen it in those subantarctic islands of New Zealand, where the snipe there and the Auckland Island teal and the Campbell Island teal, these flightless ducks, have really come back strong after they were able to eradicate these introduced pests that were just chewing up all the young and the eggs. It's pretty inspiring stuff that, in a time when it seems like a lot is going wrong in conservation, to see these areas just recover, and it's amazing how quickly they recover as well.
Yeah, and one of the things here that was actually sort of the negative was that there was such opposition to a process which is actually tried and true and really has worked and has been a success story conservation-wise all over the world. But being, a situation that had to become political because the Coastal Commission was involved in public input, then you got all sorts of different viewpoints, including misinformed ones. It's sort of like that was tiring, to say the least, to a lot of the biologists who had been devoting their lives to this island, to see people just basically not listen to them or their expertise or their thoughts. People who love this place, and They're completely being discounted, like they're
Yeah.
nut bars. It's
Right.
like, hold on a second.
They love it. They know it better than most, and they know what is good for the biodiversity there. And then you get people that basically just don't want anything to change, no matter what it is.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's
people
done.
love. Yeah, that's good news. And my father often likes to say that people love to cherish their misconceptions, and I think we see that again and again in society. Anytime there's anything to react to, we do see that. But that's great news and good for the ashy storm petrels and all the other critters out there. That's really great.
Yeah,
fantastic stuff. Yeah. One thing I wanted to shifting gears here a little, Al. One thing that has come up, I think, for both of us recently around the holidays here are gift ideas for birders, for new birders, especially for young birders, particularly. And of course, I would be remiss not to remind folks that they can buy some of our stuff as gifts, right? And I'm sure that there's some items you might suggest for folks. I'd like to remind folks that the ABA Field Guide to the Birds of Pennsylvania that I wrote is a great book for new birders, for beginning birders, for your neighbor who might have an interest in nature. I think that series of books, Alvaro, you wrote the California one, and there's I think a dozen.
ABA Guide to California.
Yeah,
again, written for people who are starting out. Very, I wouldn't call it simple, because sometimes we've been very careful with our word choice on how to separate this from that, or tell people where to find things, where it's easiest to find them. But it simplifies your life, I think, as a new birder.
Yeah. It's supposed to be. It really is geared towards new birders and beginning birders. But I think both of us wrote ours such that we hoped that even veteran birders, devoted birders, would look at it and hopefully learn some things. So I think those are good gift choices. But one thing that folks have raised and is, if you have a kid who's a new birder, what are some resources for them and starter kits for new birders? Any suggestions there, Al?
Boy, I think it's an issue also of cost and how much involvement you think that potential kid could have in the future. But let's put it this way. A lot of parents will sometimes, see their kid have an interest in sport and spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars in a sport stuff, whether it's skates or, speaking from experience, hockey padding or whatever. But so in the choice of a binocular, there's often a tendency to say, hey, look, just get them a cheap old binocular, to start out with. But I would say just notch it up a little level in the quality of the first binocular, because so much of your experience of the wow factor comes from having a glass that is at least okay.
Decent.
You don't want to, you don't want to get those plastic little kid binoculars where, you can't see a thing, and it seems like you've done something to help, but in fact, it's not a good experience.
Yeah.
So, and now there's so many good binoculars at a couple of $100,
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, there's even there's more options now than ever before for relatively inexpensive. I don't want to say cheap, because there still is a bit of an investment, but relatively inexpensive, decent quality binoculars where the difference is between having something that you can kind of see with and having something that you can really see well with. And that is a huge difference for the observer. I think probably most of us have had the experience, even with perhaps more experienced birders, where you go out and you look through their binoculars and think, geez, how are they actually, this is really difficult. This is going to be, if I was using these, I would struggle. And if it's worth spending a little bit more on these, because, often people do tend to take care of them, and if you get a decent pair, they can last you for several years or even much more than that. And there's so much you can see. Yeah.
And I think we both talked also about the fact that we're real book lovers, and not just because we have an emotional kind of tie to books, but that it is a great way to actually learn birds, more so than an app or, even, putting things on Merlin and stuff where you're not getting the full visual realm of what's out there. So you're not kind of really sparking that magical, oh, I wish I could see that, or like, look at this, the map says it's out there in North Dakota. That whole idea of kind of rifling through the book and saying like, whoa, whooping crane, where do I see that?
Mm-hmm.
What's it look like? And what's, that whole thing you get from going through a book, like page by page, and kids love that,
Yeah.
and it's way better than on your phone having the app. And
yeah.
So I would suggest a book,
a
true. Field guide.
Yeah, there are our good friend Bill Thompson III. He had a young birders guide that I know a lot of. That was one of his proudest projects that he worked on.
Yeah,
and that's a good one. And I do think the ABA state guides, they cover at least a dozen states now or more. Mostly, I think the ones that are more well populated, but they're working to add more all the time. And I do think those are really good intro. Starter as part of a starter kit for somebody who's new and starting to look in the backyard and maybe a little bit beyond. And there's nice imagery to inspire and to draw wonder about what might lay just beyond.
Yeah. So. And I mean, and for next year, we're working on a photographic guide to the burrowing owl skirts of North America. And apparently, they pick up different stuff in Florida, South Florida, than they do in Alberta. Let me tell you that much.
It's going to be co-authored by Florida Man. True story.
But yeah, and for maybe not necessarily for kids, but I've started this project called birdingyourbestlife.com, which is an online resource where you can become a member, and then you have access to classes and workshops and live events and things. So I've just was putting together something pretty simple, like separating Downy from Hairy Woodpecker for people to go and rifle through and stuff like that, just as a learning resource. And there's more and more stuff in there all the time. So
community too,
yeah. Conversation can be had with members. So we've just started this whole thing, and check it out and sign up or contact me if you want to sign up a friend or something.
Yeah, I've been digging at what I've seen so far, and I was just on that Uganda trip with Molly and Peter Burke and some others, and Peter was looking through it, and he was talking about some of the stuff he's looking forward to contributing, and some of the stuff that's already there.
Yes,
it really is cool, and there's going to be more and more good stuff on there. So look forward to seeing that.
Yeah, and we look forward to hearing about Uganda eventually, which I guess there's going to be a special Uganda episode coming up.
Yeah, we're going to do an extra, sort of a non-typical episode of the pod here, where Molly and I are going to talk about our experience in Uganda. We had an incredible group of 11 birders, mostly from the U.S., a couple from Canada, one from Great Britain, and it was definitely an excellent experience. I'm looking forward to going back. I think Molly and you also are looking forward to going back, offering trips there. And it'll be fun to kind of detail for folks some of what you might expect if you visit, and just some of the cool experiences. So we do look forward to putting that together in the coming weeks here.
That sounds good. Yeah, I mean, it'll be Peter Burke that would be going on behalf of us, and that he was super excited about what they saw. And I don't want to talk too much about it. I want to hear you guys talk about it. But I've heard stories, and it just I gotta admit, I felt like I wished I'd been there.
Yeah, it would have been great too. It was the close encounters with great apes, and an enormous elephant, the biggest elephant I've ever seen for sure, and some amazing birds. So we will detail that in the near future. But
So how
yeah.
did they pronounce Turaco or Turaco?
There was some discussion had about this, Al.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And
I'm not crazy. There's something going on here.
And I'm not sure we really settled on what is appropriate or correct. And I found myself switching between the two depending on, I don't know, my mood or, whatever syllables.
Code switching. So if you were with the Turaco people, you'd be like, hey, I saw a Turaco. And it's like, then you're with the Turaco people, like, great blue Turaco. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can fit in.
Yeah. I mean, it is a really cool group of birds. And like when all of a sudden you see one, you have to yell it out. It was like, I think I yelled out like Ross's Turaco, and then later I'd be talking about great blue Turaco. And I was like, I'm like totally not saying it the same. It just,
Yeah. Consistency.
Yeah.
I don't know what I think about that. I actually kind of like it. Inconsistency is sometimes kind of fun.
Variety is the spice of life.
That's right. Yeah. Turaco. It just sounds clinical. It just sounds, gosh, I don't know why, Turaco. Here at Turaco, we love to, you're the customer is our number one. But you know what I mean? Like it sounds like something. But Turaco sounds more like, mustache turca, Turco. It's like it flows a little better, but it could be wrong.
Yeah.
Or maybe there is no right or wrong.
Yeah. I'm not sure. It might be like pileated, pilated, or egret and egret. Some of these are plover or plover. I think all of those are equally correct depending on.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You actually can say egret. That's I mean, unless you're French.
Yeah.
Yeah, but, pick a language.
Pick a side.
Pick a side. Yeah, I didn't know. I didn't actually have never heard anybody call them egrets that I didn't think was saying. I mean, I know plover, that kind of see that as a real dichotomy, like the other ones you mentioned. But
again, for me, it depends. Like I find myself saying snowy egret and great egret. Like
really,
just because of how all those letters go together, and it just it flows easier for me to say them that way.
Oh, that's because you're a poet. You're more of a poet.
Stop it!
Yeah, that's right. You're. It's all about the flow of the words.
That's right. Absolutely.
Well, I guess that was my point too. Turaco and Turaco. It's about the flow. That's the word.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Turaco sounds ugly.
Yeah, sounds more exotic to me, but I don't know.
Turaco.
Yeah.
But then you have to sort of say it like a British person. It's like, did you see that Turaco? And then, you're like, oh, yes. It was right beside the Jaguar.
Yeah. Wow. Dominic Cousins was the Brit with us on this trip. I think he'd be horrified by your British accent, but.
Well, I was doing somebody from Somerset.
Okay. Not a Yorkshire. Yeah.
Right. I'm just, yeah. Now they're really going to be upset at us. We've offended all of the British people.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you should see the British when they do an American accent. They all sound like John Wayne. So what, I'm not going to apologize. It's all cowboyish. Have you ever noticed?
Yeah. They try to do Texas and don't quite pull it off.
No, but they just say, do an American accent randomly. And they start going, hey, y'all. Say, well, nobody talks like that around here.
Or they say awesome a lot. They'll say awesome. It's just
awesome. Yeah. Brilliant.
Smashing.
Brilliant. Stonking looks.
Mm-hmm.
Stonking.
Yeah.
There's some weird stuff they use. Yeah.
Here comes the hate mail. I'm looking forward to that.
Well, at least it'd be well written because they're British.
Yeah, that's true. And they'd speak with more authority.
Right. And the Canadians would be very polite in their letters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. They're very polite in their hate mail, which we appreciate.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, we're coming up on the hour here. Any final thoughts for folks?
Do your CBCs, even though I was negative on them last time. That was a personal thing, and I just enjoyed great morning doing a CBC and may do another. Just ignore everything I said, and and I think I'll say that.
Fair enough. Good stuff. Well, thanks everybody for listening. And we look forward to coming back with another episode soon. I think we're going to get Molly Brown back next time we record, and we do have some extras coming at you as well. So listen up for those. Send us some mail. Alvaro, have a great rest of your holiday season. Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.